recording. All right. I want to thank everybody for coming back to our 6th episode of the Indiana Behavior Association's diary. Today's episode is going to be called Disney World, which we will be expanding on and explaining a little later as we get through the motions. But today we're going to be talking about the predominant topic in our industry, in the Indiana waiver industry, about solicitation. Just solicitation in general, uninvited solicitation, and how it has been historically used as a weapon in the disabilities industry, and what we're kind of experiencing, and then what we're trying to do about it so that it stops happening. But before we dive in, I would love for our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us who they are and what they do. Aisha, thank you for coming back. If you could tell us who you are, I'd appreciate it.
My name is Maisha Richmond. I am a BC in the Indianapolis, Avon, Marion County, Hendricks County area.
Don't you have another position that you hold?
I am also the president of IBA, the Indiana Behavior Association.
She's my boss in this arena. And so thanks for coming, boss. Jennifer, who are you?
Jennifer Hersig. I'm a behavior consultant in Hamilton County.
Thanks for coming, Jennifer. To literally what? You're 6 for 6 now, right?
I've done them all so far. Yeah.
We're going to get 60 for 60, and then we'll figure it out from there. I got a lot more coming. I think you might actually miss 1 or 2, but we'll forgive you later. All right, everybody. As I said, we're going to be covering solicitation today. We've got a lot of materials. If you caught episode 3, it's going to be a little similarities to that. We're going to get into some of those kinds of screen sharing. We got 1 video to play briefly. It's actually really short. And then we're going to jump into all of that. So I'd like to just start with that video real quick. I got to switch my audio like last time because I learned that my microphone and playing videos on the computer don't work well. So stand by. Changing to computer. Changing computer. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Just not as good because it's a computer versus a microphone?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to load up and share my screen on this video, and we're going to play it, and it's brief, and then we'll talk about it. So this is from Beads' YouTube page. This was a webinar that they did, I believe, in September of last year, and I queued us all the way up to the 28-minute mark. In 50 seconds. We don't need to sit through the whole thing. This is the part pertaining to us. So I'm going to big screen it and play it. Maybe.
Earlier, you arrived late. So one update, or not really an update, just a clarification. We get a lot of questions around solicitation. Whether there's a complaint or, someone, sharing that they believe that a provider is soliciting. So I wanted to just point out our specific 460 code around solicitation, and it's 460 IAC 636-2 Code of Ethics. A provider providing services shall not engage in uninvited solicitation of potential clients who are vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, and coercion. And I really want to point out the word uninvited as there are certain activities and things that happen that aren't necessarily, solicitation, whether someone posts a job, a posting and says they're looking for, DSPs in this area, things like that. So it's really that uninvited that is in red here is really important when it comes to whether solicitation is occurring or not. So again, just keep this in mind, happy to, if you do find that there's an issue, want that reported, definitely. But just really pointing out that word uninvited, and it's a little, it can be a little sticky sometimes of whether someone thinks something is solicitation or not. So we're happy if you want to submit a question to Beats Help or anything like that, or reach out to us if you have a question or you want to talk through to see if something is solicitation.
Okay, that is it. How do I stop sharing my screen here? Maybe. There we go. Now we'll change my audio settings back to the microphone. All right, you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So what do we think? That's the whole clip. What are our thoughts on that?
I don't hear an
I'm not-
actual definition.
Okay.
I find it interesting that she actually said this is clarification, but it really wasn't clarification.
Right.
And I like how uninvited was in red, because that lets me know that solicitation is okay, just not the uninvited solicitation.
Okay. So, one thing I will give, credit where it's due. You heard at the end where she was like, if you want to reach out and get, discuss it or whatever. I haven't done that. I feel like the webinar portion is that opportunity, right? And the example that was given was something about putting up a listing for DSPs. DSPs are staff. The code is about the individuals we serve. And so to me, that whole segment there was no clarity. There was no clarification. I didn't gain anything from it, but they cited policy, right? They cited the Indiana Administrative Code, right? So my next screen sharing is right here. Do you see this?
Yes.
See if I can learn how to. Perfect. Maybe like this. Oh, that doesn't work. There we go. Okay. I need to move our little boxes out of the way. So this is the code that she's referring to, right? 460 IAC, Indiana Administrative Code 636-2, Code of Ethics, right? We scroll down because there's a bunch of stuff to the parts that I highlighted in yellow. So for those at home who watch, you can pause your screen and read this in total. It's also available online. You just Google, Indiana Administrative Code and you can get to it. So these are the things that I thought were pertinent, right? Here it says a provider shall require all employees or agents to inform the public and colleagues of services by use of factual information. So we're going to remember that, right? Factual information. I made a note. We're going to cover that. And then a provider shall not advertise or market services in a misleading manner. I mean, that is, forget about Indiana Administrative Code. Like that's law. You can't just be misleading, right? Right. But anywho, a provider providing services should not engage in uninvited solicitation. Maisha, there's that part that was read for you, of potential clients who are vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion. A provider shall make reasonable efforts to avoid bias. Yes, a provider shall notify the appropriate parties. Here they go. This is the one that brought my thoughts to spinning, kind of like, a provider shall notify the appropriate party, which may include any of these people, of any unprofessional conduct that may jeopardize an individual's safety or influence the individual or individual's representative in any decision making. Unprofessional conduct is incredibly vague. Like what's unprofessional to me may not be unprofessional to you.
Right.
And so one of my struggles is the lack of examples. And that's one thing I'd really personally like to see from the state of Indiana is, can you give us some examples and some more concreteness? Because the example, I believe, don't quote me, I believe that was Jessica Harlan York, her voice in that webinar that was going over, the uninvited solicitation in their webinar. I believe it was her. But I feel like from those high level, state officials, like we need more concrete explanations, because what she said in there was, well, listening for DSPs isn't solicitation. Well, of course it's not. We have to hire people.
I think that example was given, and this is where we go to our interpretations.
Yeah.
I think that example was saying if a DSP or like a behavior consultant or anyone in the industry was to post that this is where they are, somebody else can follow without it being uninvited solicitation. I think that was my interpretation of it.
When you say follow, like, what do you mean? Like, clarify that for
So
me.
let's say I left a company, I left ABC and went to DEF.
Yeah.
And I posted that I am now serving as a behavior consultant at DEF.
Yeah.
That means if anybody was to see that post, see that on social media, and I used to service them, they can feel free to reach out probably to their case manager and say, hey, I see Maisha is at DEF now, so they can follow. And that would not be uninvited solicitation.
Well, let me pose this question to you, Maisha, based off that example. Number 13 of that code that I just shared my screen so people can go back and pause it and reread it. Number 13 says a provider shall require all employees or agents to inform the public and colleagues of services by use of factual information. So if you left company A and now you're going to company B, is that factual?
Yes.
Based on this policy, you can tell people factual information. So instead of putting up a post that people can stumble upon and then talk to their case manager about, if I put in my 2 weeks notice at company A, and I'm going through the process of informing my company, case managers, individuals that I serve, because you got to treat people with dignity, and they have the dignity to know that I've put in my notice and that changes are potentially coming. And based off of this policy, I can tell them the truth, factual truth. Here's the facts. I put in my 2 weeks notice here. On this date or sooner, I will be starting over here. I can tell people, unless the
Yes.
state, sees this and puts out, communication or, pulls me in to discuss this, that is my interpretation. Factually, I can tell people the truth. If I leave, and I've been preaching this for a while, if I leave working at Walmart, I can tell people that I'm going to start at Target. And I think the reason why this is a hot topic in our industry is because it's been used as a stick. People will frequently be like, you're not allowed to tell people where you're going. You've put in your notice, do not talk to any consumer, just disappear. Like, how often has that been a thing in our industry where, agencies, instruct their practitioners of that, right?
So instead of a stick, I would say it's used as a weapon, because company
Yeah.
A is saying, okay, fine, you can go, because they can't stronghold you to stay, but they don't want your consumers to go. And my
Right.
thought process behind that is, I can bring a whole caseload with me, but when I leave, I have to leave them there. Two, it's I look at waiver services as a medical service that we're providing, right? And so if I have someone I'm working with and we have a therapeutic relationship, a consultant relationship, whatever that relationship may be, as an individual, I have the right to work with who I want to, right? So let's say I
I
had a
agree.
doctor and I was going to my doctor and I moved and wanted to change doctors, or I was unhappy with my doctor and I wanted to go to another doctor. It's my right to choose who I work with. So I may say, can you transfer my file over here? I'm going to choose a different person to work with.
And they have to. They have to. And, you make a great point, right? The weaponization, that's something that, like, I've been very vocal about. The weaponizing of these little things in Indiana's disability industry that people attack each other with. And I have to be, truthful, right? My truth is, I feel like the state has always had an opportunity to be more definitive. Like, you guys just listened to that webinar. That was September of 2022, just a few months back. And that was an opportunity to provide the state with clarity, real clarity, explanations, examples. And they didn't. They just said, if you list for DSPs, it's not solicitation.
And
We
they
know
have
that.
to know that, right? I mean,
We
they
know
have
that.
to know the absolute definition and examples of what is uninvited solicitation and what is going too far, because they're going to investigate that. So they have to know what is uninvited, or what is just telling your client and their family, hey, I put in my 2 weeks notice, here I'm going here. Talk to your case manager and they can provide you choices.
So Jennifer told me that last week, and this little light bulb clicked off. And so I wrote this note, Jennifer, because I was going to bring it back up, but you got me. This is exactly what Jennifer said, and I wrote it down while we were on the phone. If you're constantly investigating solicitation complaints and closing them as unsubstantiated, then you have a definition. You have some semblance of a definition, and that should be provided to all of us. That's what I think. I think the state should be providing all of that to the entire industry. Say, hey, these are some examples of things that we have determined were found and were solicitation, uninvited. And then here are examples that, are not, and give us a whole big old, book of it. So that way we can, operate within the guidelines of the ethics, but then, like, stop the weaponizing, right? Stop the whole, fighting amongst each other. And I think that's the state's imperative. They have a responsibility to us as the providers to like, hey, you guys are all interfighting, bullying each other with this tactic, like episode 3, the cease and desist and all the other stuff. There's just another one of the forms. I think they have an imperative to intervene and say, hey, no. This is what solicitation is. This is what uninvited solicitation is. These are not that. Move on. You know what I mean?
And if you got a client with you for like 6 years, like say you, I don't know, you've been working with someone for a long time, which we tend to do, right? We've been in this industry for a while. We tend to stay with our clients and their families for a long time. And would they not want to know if you're going somewhere or if you're quitting, or would they not want to hear that from you?
And they should, because again, we are allowed to operate on a factual basis, factual information per number 13. I can tell the truth. And anyway, I don't think you could actually make a policy that tells me I can't tell the truth anyways.
Right.
I've never found one that exists, but the facts are, I can tell people the truth, whether it's a client I'm working with. Like if a doctor, if your PCP, your primary care physician, like Maisha's example, says, hey, you know, Maisha, I've been at IU Arnett in Lafayette for 10 years, been a patient of mine, but listen, because of this or that, or doesn't even have to tell you the reasons. For any reasons at all, I have decided to start working at St. Elizabeth down the road. I start there in a month. And Maisha's like, oh, okay, well, take care. I don't care. I'm going to stay here. Her prerogative. Or she goes, oh, okay, well, been my doctor for 10 years. I love your service. I'm going to switch over to St. Elizabeth. It's Maisha's prerogative to shop where she wants. And that doctor, these clinicians, the music therapists, the rec therapists, the DSPs can tell people the truth. And I think because of the lack of definition that we have to start kind of pulling it out ourselves and then providing that to our industry, because it's been a long-standing problem, like historical, right? So like the first fun that I'm going to share my screen on is an old email I got. Before I go there,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
My thought is,
yes, Maisha.
my thought is, let's say now we know that there's a big issue with this. I'm not privy to this information, but would you say 5 years ago it wasn't as much investigation? It wasn't as big as a problem that it has become now?
I'd say it was worse.
Really?
Yeah, because 5 years ago I wasn't fighting it the way I am now.
Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer, what are you answer that?
Well, I mean, one of the things I think about is like, my years as a case manager and being that person that would step in and go, hey, you know, your behavior consultant or whoever it may be is switching agencies. Do you want to stay with them, or do you want to stay with the agency, or do you want to find something else? And I would be the one to present that information. And I don't remember so much of that side of it being difficult for a BC, but when I stepped into being a behavior consultant and I started to be told what I can say and what I can't, I had this inherent fear of, I can't tell, because obviously I've switched agencies a few times. I can't tell my client, I'm not allowed. So I have to discreetly call my case manager and let them know, so that they can go in there and tell my client, because I'm fearful of retaliation for telling my client that I put in my notice and I'm going somewhere else.
When you started as a BC, did you sign a non-compete?
No.
Okay, so
I have never
I did not sign a non-compete
Yeah.
when I started as well, but I did tell case managers, and I didn't do it discreetly. I also put in my notice that I was going to tell my case managers where I was going.
Oh, Maisha, I love it.
That was, I think, the difference, because I wasn't fearful of retaliation because I felt like I did things the right way. But I know a lot of BCs starting out sign non-competes because, one, they just want a job. They don't know what that entails until they're ready to leave.
Right.
So I'm sorry,
Well,
I kind of went another direction, but
which is
I'm pretty
fine.
sure we'll get there.
That's fine. Non-competes and solicitation is going to be like yeah, they've both been weaponized and they've both been sticks that we deal with, but they're not identical, right? Like, cause this is actual like BEADS policy, right? And so actually, before I share my screen, right, because you guys brought something up, Jennifer, you were a case manager for years. As a case manager, can case managers tell clients where their BC is going if they ask?
Yeah.
If John Smith goes, hey, Maisha said she put in her notice at wherever at company A and she's going to company B. She didn't tell us what the name of company B was. Can case managers today tell them?
Yeah.
I believe so, because
Yeah.
because the policy, right, I printed it, but the policies that I shared my screen on that were highlighted, number 13 says a provider shall require all employees or agents to inform the public and colleagues of services by use of factual information. This isn't B-man policy. This is waiver policy. So according to this code of ethics, case managers, the fact is your BC put in their notice at company A, they're going to be available at company B. And if you would like to go with them, you factually can make that choice.
Mhm.
And too many times we're using this as a stick and as a weapon. So Maisha, you're going to appreciate this. I'm going to share my screen now. You're going to like this. I don't know that you're going to like it, but you know, you'll tell me how you feel about it in a second. So this is an email I received years ago from Elizabeth Nelson, who at the time, I think was the director. Yeah, she's the director of behavior management at Bridges. Now she's like the vice president for Indiana Mentor, who bought Bridges of Indiana. But we'll just go through it real quick. Hello, Joaquin. It has come to my attention that you solicited consumers while still under contract with Bridges. Not only was this a violation of your contract, it wasn't with us, but also a significant violation of BEADS Code of Ethics. We just listed BEADS Code of Ethics. It's not a violation. Bridges of Indiana fully embraces the consumer's right to choose, but that is a decision that the consumer forms with his or her case manager. As a provider, one must always walk that ethical line. BEADS specifically prohibits direct contact of the consumer in these situations. I've never read that.
I didn't see that anywhere.
I never have. No, it's a weapon, right? Yeah. Put fear into me. Because what if I didn't know any better? Right. What if I got this email? You've been to BC for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years. You haven't sat down. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. Let's just say,
no, don't.
Oh, you want to finish it? You want to finish it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, one moment. One moment. Sorry, Maisha. Maisha, you didn't know it was going to be fun today.
It says, BEADS takes a dim view of poachers. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, you know, like you said earlier, you know, and we've talked about it so many times on this show, you know, if I'm arriving there with a full caseload, come on in, buddy. We'll give you a bonus. You know, do you want a pizza party? But if I'm leaving with a caseload because you've made me unhappy, now we're problematic, right? So no, I've never, there is no policy that says I can't have direct contact with somebody simply because I put in my notice, because according to the ethics policy, I can work off of factual information. Now, how many BCs out there aren't as annoyingly OCD as I am? Because I keep the HCBS manual on my desk, right? And I've been reading this thing and the updates for years. I've been keeping up with it, right? And so not everybody does. And so when they sent that to me, you lost that fight, but like how many BCs didn't win that fight? Not just from that company, in the industry, how many music therapists, rec therapists, DSPs, you name it, get an email like that and, you know, go, oh my God, did I do something? Am I in big trouble? And then they run away from the industry because we went through a spell of losing hundreds of behavior consultants in these years because of these kinds of tactics, amongst other things. But this was one of those reasons why we were losing behavior consultants, and nobody wants to take accountability for it. Like, you all were perpetrating this. And yeah, Maisha, this has been going on for a long time. This is not new. I just, you know, in the last several years was like, enough is enough. It's time to fight. It's time to, you know, push back, because it just, you know, it's everywhere, right?
It's important for especially, you know, new BCs coming into the industry to kind of know these things, right? Like, and understand them, because there's just so much misinformation out there. And then as you go from one agency to the next, that even changes, right? Their interpretations of the code and stuff like that.
And that's why I think examples would be beneficial. Instead of just saying, hey, you know, if you list to hire DSPs, like, provide us with tangible examples of things that you have found and enforce this is uninvited solicitation. And these are, 50 examples of complaints we received that were not, you don't have to, you don't have to produce the names or anything, just the example. You can make that generic. Yeah, I'm still reading your note, Jennifer, where it's like, if you're closing cases, then what your definition is. Give it to us, right? And then Maisha, you were talking about, on the inbound and outbound, right? And so another reason why, like, I think this is important to emphasize is this weapon is used on the outbound, never on the inbound. Just like in episode 3, when we brought it up, right? The cease and desist and all those kind of fictitious complaints, it's always on the outbound. If I show up at agency A, B, or C with a full caseload, come on in, buddy. No complaints are being filed, no solicitation threats, no cease and desist, nothing is happening but open arms and joy. But the moment you leave with your same caseload that want to work with you, it's like, here's solicitation, here's a cease and desist, here's the complaint to BQIS, yada yada. It's just the tactics, right?
Right.
I got a question for you too, Maisha. You get to go first too. So the policy, that ethics policy that I had pulled up, it says on 15, a provider providing services shall not engage in uninvited solicitation of potential clients who are vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion. Okay, based off of that definition, my generic example to ask both of you, but Maisha will go first, is the mother of an 8-year-old vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion? So just picture anybody in the world, generic example, 8-year-old with an autism diagnosis, their mother, their father are neurotypical, one's a nurse, one works at the Subaru plant, building Subarus. Is that mother, is that father, are those parents vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion? What's your thought?
I would say no, because they have a right to determine who their child works with. Same thing with, it's a provider, right? My doctor is a provider, a consultant is a provider, DSP staff is a provider. If it doesn't work out, we can choose. For whatever reason, it doesn't work out. Music therapists are providers. Rec therapists are providers. I get to choose who I want in my home. I get to choose who's going to take my child out into the community. It doesn't matter who that person is. If it's a person under 18, a person over 18 with a guardian, I, as the guardian, should be able to choose that service as well as who's providing that service.
So if I were to approach Mother Jane, Father John, they have an 8-year-old with autism. I ran into them at Payless, and I hear them talking, and I go, "Hey, my name's Joaquin. I provide behavior consulting at Supported Behavior Services. Here's my card. If you ever, are interested in services." That was uninvited because they weren't asking me or anything. But this says I cannot engage in uninvited solicitation of potential clients who are vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion. Were those two parents vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion? And you don't think so, Maisha?
No.
Jennifer, what's your take on that question we're sparking?
Yeah, uninvited is, I would think, have someone you don't even know, right? I mean, you're working with the guardian, you're working with the parents, or you're working with the client. Like, uninvited is, they don't even know me and I walk up to you and I'm soliciting something, right? Or I'm like, hey, follow me to company B, I'll give you a $50 gift card, right? So I mean,
I'll take you to Disney World.
There, oh yeah, Disney, right? So I mean, right there, that is not right, but if you are literally just saying, to a guardian, to a parent, putting my 2 weeks notice, going over to this company, and I have, from the few times that I have switched companies, has always been, make sure you also talk to your case manager so that they can provide you other choices, right? Like, I think that's fair, just to make sure that, maybe there could be a situation where the guardian's like, you're good, but maybe you're not that good. I don't know. Maybe they've only worked with you for a couple of weeks and all of a sudden things change, right? So making sure that the case manager is aware and then can follow up. But yeah, absolutely. Like, talking to a parent or a guardian, and telling them you're leaving, that is not uninvited solicitation. And they're not at risk, right? They're not at risk of being coerced or.
That's how I feel, right?
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of this policy, but I don't have a state's interpretation. My
Right.
interpretation is parents or, whomever outside of that diagnosis are not, vulnerable to these things. And so therefore I can tell you the truth all day long. So one of the things that I want to emphasize on today's episode is solicitation. My understanding is solicitation is sales effectively in forms that we as all waiver providers in the entire state of Indiana engage in solicitation. Made a list. Billboards, there's plenty of them. We use billboards. I don't, but like they're out there, right? Our websites are solicitation. We're soliciting our services on our websites. Social media accounts on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever, you are soliciting your services on your social medias. Flyers, the big one, booths at provider fairs is literal direct solicitation. Yeah, they're coming to the provider fair, but I am there selling my service. Here's a pamphlet, here's a brochure, here's my card, here's what we do at SBS, here's what we do at this one, here's what we do at this one. Solicitation. The special needs living magazine that I love up there, right? Solicitation. Special events, right? Agencies put on special events, trunk or treat, New Year's Eve parties, all that kind of stuff. How are they going to get people to come? Spread the word, solicit. Hey, come to trunk or treat at this agency. What does that do? Puts your agency in their mind. They might shop for services there. We have to solicit. We're businesses, we sell something, we sell a service, we sell 5 services. So we have to solicit. We are not barred from solicitation. Nothing in that policy says you can't solicit. It says you cannot perform uninvited solicitation of potential clients who are vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion. That's it. It does not say I cannot solicit, or else how am I going to stay afloat and sell my service? We'd all go under if we couldn't sell our service, right? I'm going to take that as a
question.
No, I just went on a tangent.
I know. How many, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I mean, how many BCs that have come over to SBS have had investigations put on them?
A ton.
Yeah.
I mean, so that dates back to episode 3.
How many have actually found something?
0.
0.
So, I mean, yeah, that dates back to, episode 3, right? The fictitious complaint, because on the outbound, an agency will file a fictitious complaint to say you solicited. They won't have any evidence. They won't have a complaining family. They'll just say you solicited, right? But again, we can solicit. We just can't perform uninvited solicitation. And so then they file the complaint, BQS investigates. They've all been closed, unsubstantiated. So like Jennifer pointed out, then there's a definition somewhere. And then we move on. But like in the interim, that's problematic, right? Because they notify the families. So then that sours and sabotages the relationship between the clinician and the families, because they're not sure. They don't know the game and the politics. So they're sitting there going, what's happening with our clinician? Was something wrong? Did they actually do something nefarious hidden in the background? No. She just let you know, he just let you know where they were going to go work. So how many? A lot.
They also send information to case managers, which then, as a case manager, my thought is, hey, I really like the work that Joaquin is doing, but did he do something else? And if I'm attempting to help a family, you say, well, maybe this company, or this company, you try. I mean, if you look at those pick lists and a family is overwhelmed by looking at a pick list, as a case manager, don't you provide them with a couple companies to say, I've worked with some good BCs over here or some good BCs over there? That may then in turn have them go, oh, probably, maybe I shouldn't say anything. And that's doing the family a disservice.
Right.
It is definitely my stance. And the state can watch this, right? It's going on YouTube, just like theirs go on YouTube. They can watch this. They can say I'm wrong and then contact me, right? Come meet with me. Tell me what the definition, tell all of us. Don't just tell me, actually, tell the entire industry. What is the definition? If I am wrong, come and tell all of us. Because my interpretation is I can tell human beings the truth any day of the week, all day long. You know, and just imagine if we all just told the truth. All providers, the state, if we all just told the truth, imagine like the world that we would be in, you know, the industry that we would be in if we all just told the truth. If we all just reflected and said, all right, you know what, I had some shortcomings here, I'm working to improve those. In the meantime, we lost a BC or two. It happens. We've seen it. Now we're going to work on this. Like, instead of the sabotage and because this to me is manipulation and coercion of the clients by alleging things like solicitation and the cease and desist and all those things that historically happen without evidence, right? Because again, like, you know, Jennifer pointed out, against SBS, 0 have ever been found. And by against SBS, it's a clinician that was at another agency on their way over, you know, that hasn't, you know, even really arrived yet or is in the process of arriving. You know?
So then they're really filing it on the BC and accusing them of doing something wrong. And potentially, I mean, that would be a scary situation. I haven't been in that situation myself, but like if I were to be in that situation and all of a sudden an investigation is opened up on me and I know they're contacting my clients, like that's a stressful situation, especially if you're not familiar, you know, with these techniques.
Right. And so how many BCs did we scare out of the industry?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm a firm believer that people continue to do things that are effective, good or bad. If it works, I'm going to keep doing it. And that's why this has been going on for years and years and years, long before COVID. COVID didn't have anything to do with this. This was going on long and long and long before, and to this day continues to happen. I mean, continues. So like, I'm going to pull up our first like concrete example, right? Because like I always tell everybody, like I don't come here with conjecture, I come here with facts and things to back those facts up with. So this was a fun. You always like to ask me questions when I'm about to share my screen.
I'm trying to get it in before you go there. Just
you too
one
slow.
quick
Listen,
question.
you're just too slow with that pitch. Yes. What's up?
One quick question. During this investigation, beads are opening up an investigation because they received this letter from company B regarding a clinician that was leaving company A. Will that clinician have to stop, or can that clinician still provide services while that investigation is going on?
Yes.
Okay.
I've not come across a situation where they couldn't. I don't know if that's a concrete answer, but in all the situations I've been involved in, yeah, they didn't force them to stop services. But I believe that they have the authority to. I don't know, but no, it's not happened.
Okay.
It's a good question though. Yeah, because then the family's definitely getting hurt because they're losing services while this is going on, and the state's already strapped for staff and funding. So like, you know, all right. First one. So we received this letter from this attorney's office in June of 2022, right? So just like we've all been talking about, you know, in prior episodes and today, BC's leaving, you know, company A, coming to company B. So left Ferraro Behavior Consulting, or excuse me, Ferraro Behavior Services, and accepted a job here with us. And in response to that, they filed, they had their lawyer send us this letter. They sent it to our BC, Sarah, who's a great BC, by the way, and then sent it to Positive Pathways as well. So I, you know, had a phone call with Stephanie Shank. And for the record, Stephanie had nothing to do with this and doesn't know why she got one. And to this day, I don't know why Stephanie got one over there. You know, like, I don't think they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But anywho,
they didn't know where she was going,
I guess. And so they sent it to us and to Positive Pathways, but she wasn't going there. So Stephanie didn't know anything. And yeah, so it's weird, right? So then, you know, Ferraro Behavior Services has reason to believe that Red Week has solicited individuals. What reason? Right? And again, they're allowed to solicit, right? We are allowed to solicit unless the state wants to come in and show me the policy that says we can't. We can solicit. So when we go down, providers shall not engage in uninvited solicitation of potential clients who are vulnerable to undue influence, manipulation, or coercion. That's that policy we just read, right? Right? No evidence, right? So they listed 11 individuals, full names. I obviously redacted that. So then like Positive Pathways got all these 11 individuals' full names, you know? I redacted Sarah's information. And so they sent this to, you know, Sarah, SBS, and Positive Pathways. And then these are like my notes, right? Contractor engaged in uninvited solicitation. I wrote no evidence, no complaints from families, just as my notes go on. And then this was where I thought was weird. So Ferraro Behavior Services is concerned of the negative ramifications of contractors treating individuals as commodities by shifting them around various providers. Oh yeah, and here's my note. Was sending all the 11 names to Positive Pathways a HIPAA violation? I don't know. I didn't send it. I didn't receive it. I don't think
I would say it was.
I don't know. And I don't know that it was my responsibility, right? Because they sent it and Positive Pathways did receive it. So like, I don't know, not by choice receive it, like the letter came, right? Just like it came in the mail to me. I don't know. Initial thoughts on that, folks, from that lawyer letter that we happily received in June of last year.
One, I believe it was a HIPAA violation. You've
I
told
agree.
an attorney and 2 companies. You would have
Even to-
known on the NOA where those people were going. So did you
That's
send
what I
it out
figured.
prematurely thinking, I know she applied for both of these companies, so I'm going to get to both of them before they hire? But she's already, it says that it was 11 clients. They were already identified. So wouldn't you be able to tell from the NOA that stop service on this date with this company and started services on this date with this company?
I don't
Or
know.
do the NOA go to the previous company? I'm sure it does, right?
Yeah, they do. They do.
So
See, and I
you'll
don't
know.
know. I don't know. Maybe a couple of those that were listed didn't go with her. They picked a new BC at Positive Pathways, which is their right. And Ferraro's Behavior Services was unsure. So they lumped him in and sent the letter, you know. I never spoke with James. I never received a phone call or an email. I just got that letter in the mail. Didn't respond to it, you know, saved it. Obviously you need to keep, you know, records, but I didn't respond to it. I wasn't going to spend $300 an hour with our attorney to reply to that, but they did in fact file a complaint, right? With Beats. Like we all know, that's
my
why.
question. Did they file a complaint and have an investigation done?
Of course they did, because that is what they do in this industry, in Indiana's disability industry. Maisha, I'm going to share my screen. Would you like to say or ask anything before I do so?
Nope, I'm done.
All right. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. So, you know, that was in June. We received the letter in June 17th. So on June 20th, 3 days later, I made this note on here. BC started with us in April. So she started with us in April. On June 17th, I got that lawyer letter. On June 20th, they filed the complaint with, you know, Beads. And in August, 2 months later, we got this letter basically saying, after finalizing our investigation, Beads did not find any violations. And, you know, the BC was, you know, acquitted or whatever you want to say, you know, it was unsubstantiated because she didn't do anything wrong. She transferred and people wanted to work with her, and that's the right. But here's the note that you brought up, I think, Maisha. Right. All these people are a part of it. You know, and so all these case managers don't know all the details. Did this person do something? Is something wrong? You know, it sabotages the good work that the clinician is doing. It sabotages the client from, you know, potentially being with the clinician they want, because case managers don't know what's going on. The families get this too. They get their own version. And so the families are like, oh my goodness, you know, because it takes months in between. So like this whole time they're unsure of like, could they have done something? Was something done? They don't understand this racket, you know? So
I feel like these companies know that this never goes anywhere. I mean, it is a bully tactic. I mean, at least in my experience at this point, I mean, have we ever seen, you know, even in previous agencies or whatever, where, you know, someone has gone, oh, for sure, we've investigated and found a problem, and so now we have to deal with that. Like, I have not.
As your years as a case manager, you've never had any investigation substantiated?
Not in my years as a case manager, for sure. And of course, like, I didn't even hear as much about this kind of stuff when I was doing case management. And for sure, as a behavior consultant, it just kind of hit me in the face pretty quickly in my first year. But yeah, I've not heard of it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, I'm sure, but I've not heard of this ever going anywhere. But I'm sure the tactic of filing a complaint and sending a lawyer letter is pretty significant bullying tactic to make people go, oh, that's scary. I don't want to be a part of that.
I think
So,
in the way that
Joaquin,
it's, yeah, go ahead.
why do you think people still do this outside of Jennifer saying it's a bullying tactic and it can potentially harm the clinician, but they're not getting anything out of it?
I disagree. I think they do sometimes get something out of it.
Like what?
Historically, not uniformly, not across the board, but what we've seen in our industry is if an agency sends something like that, files that complaint against a newer BC who just hasn't been around long enough, hasn't been around the right people, doesn't know, we have seen BCs cut bait and leave. Because what
Or
happens
not
is,
tell their clients, and then the agency keeps their clients while the BC just takes off and starts over.
The majority of the time, they can't even service them.
so like it works sometimes, and I think that's why it's still happening, because if you're leaving company A to go to company B and you don't know any better and you get that complaint and you go, oh my God, am I in huge trouble with the state? You'll see BCs who will leave the industry altogether for a couple of years or altogether forever to get away from this problem. And then company A retains most, if not all of those clients, and they're happy, right? Because they care about the, like James in his lawyer letter, as commodities. And so
That kills me.
sometimes,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's sometimes effective.
It's
I
about
think,
money. You are treating the client as a commodity because you want to hold on to that mighty dollar. You don't care that they've been working with this person for 5 years and that person is going somewhere else and they have the opportunity to go with that person.
keep in mind, they had every opportunity, right, to counteroffer, to find a way to incentivize to stay, to
People
BC.
don't leave jobs, they leave bosses.
Okay, I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
So why would I take a counteroffer?
I mean, you might though. You could counteroffer the
That's
crap out of it, and it might be worth it.
money speaks. Money speaks. I get it.
In that particular BC, in that Ferraro situation, I asked her, after you gave notice, did they want to sit down with you and counteroffer or whatever? And she was like, no. And we had another BC later on, months later, leave Ferraro and come to us from Southern Indiana, and he gave them an opportunity to counteroffer, and they didn't. And that's it.
Because
So,
they cap it. If
they
you're
do.
a contractor and we have other individuals that are not contractors, we're going to either stop contracting altogether. We'll leave the ones there who are already here as a contractor, but we're not going to offer anybody else the opportunity to be a contractor, because what we can pay you as an employee versus what we can pay you as a contractor is very different.
Yeah.
And majority of the funds are going to go into the business versus you as a contractor.
In both respects. Yeah. And so in my experience, a lot of these situations are just bred from sometimes they work. And so instead of counter offering, trying to incentivize people to stay, because whenever somebody leaves us, like I talked about it in like episode 3, when we had that behavior consultant put in her notice with us to go to Embracing Abilities, regardless, I made like 3 counter offers. She declined them all. That's perfectly her prerogative. But like all the other agencies, whenever a BC puts in notice, they have an opportunity to put in a counteroffer. I'm not saying it'll get accepted, right? Because it depends on the situation. Sometimes they're leaving the manager, or but maybe money will talk, Maisha. They're choosing not to make more offers and just slander and sabotage you to keep the clients, because that's the commodity, and they don't care about the consultant, right? They'll just hire somebody else or pass on your clients to somebody else. And in the meantime, if a consultant doesn't know any better, they're getting ran over.
Or even just talk to the BC, right? Like, is there something you're unhappy with? Is there something we can change? Can we get your feedback? Like, what is your reason for wanting to go? I mean, maybe it is like management's terrible. Maybe it is they really aren't being paid very much. And I think in some cases, well, and like you said, like they're not really willing to give you that raise or even attempt to find out like why you're going to leave. They're just going to attack you with lawyer letters.
It's almost like
I-
that's on deck to be like immediately fired, you know, like we're going to shoot this off immediately.
I firmly believe in the exit interview because I'm on my way out, so I'm not going to sugarcoat. Even if I wasn't on my way out, I would tell you what is the issue.
Mhm.
That's going to help your company, right?
If they were big
You're gonna
enough to take that and internalize it and turn that into improvement.
Yeah, so you can figure out what's going on, why people are leaving, and you can change. Maybe it's training, and that BC wanted more training or wanted more opportunities to grow. And so that wasn't there. So let's see how we can fix this as a company versus slander this person.
If you are
And
mature,
again,
I agree with that, Maisha, but in general, I think you're wrong in this one. I'm sorry.
and then again, a lot of people, we are reactive instead of proactive. So if I had anything to do with beads or if I worked for beads, my thought would be, how do we, because we're using time and resources, right, to investigate
Mhm.
these opportunities or these letters, what can we do to assist clinicians, companies, and the industry as a whole, so we don't have to spend money, time, and resources investigating these allegations.
And why not ask for a factual complaint? Okay, so like you're filing complaints saying uninvited solicitation happened. Can you just say uninvited solicitation happened? We need an investigation. Can you not say we happen to know that everyone on this caseload got a $50 gift card to go to this next company? I mean, I feel like you can just say whatever you want to say in this investigation, not even provide any.
They uniformly happen. I think genuine evidence needs to be submitted or no investigation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I've made that case with the state. I've made that case with Holly Wimsat and with a few others, with Robin Carruthers, with Kim Cawley, with Shelley Thompson, one of those. I have made that case that complaints need to be brought forth with concrete, tangible evidence, or they don't go forward, because it's
Right.
just wasting state time and resources, and it's wasting our resources, because every hour that we have to deal with these is a dollar value. And so we spend thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars every year having to fight it. So Maisha, I think our response was an identification that the state isn't helping us with this. So we made an association and a legal aid fund to help behavior consultants and to help agencies, not just our own, to try to move on from these types of, sabotage.
And at least educate them, right? Let BCs know what options they have out there in terms of different types of,
And they can make
agents.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maisha.
I just still feel like it's a disservice.
Oh, I knew what I was going to say. I completely agree to disservice. The exit interview. I disagree. Simple example, OPG, right, that we're in current litigation with. They do exit interviews. The BCs that left there and came to us, most of them did the exit interview. OPG still filed a retaliatory complaint that led to the 6 months of hell we've been dealing with in the civil suit against them for damages. So
Well, I'm not saying that the exit interview is going to stop what's going on. I'm saying the exit interview is going to help the employer by identifying the reason I left.
Sure,
I'm
but then
saying
they
It's a
still
good
just
tool.
filed the complaint though.
that's on them as an individual
Right.
company.
Right.
What I'm
That's why I
saying
don't
is
think
if
the exit interview is going to
everybody
help.
did, but if everybody did exit interviews and I specifically tell you why I'm leaving, that then gives you the information you need to make it better for the next person coming behind me or the
You
people that
choose,
are
yeah.
staying there. If you choose to still file these complaints, that's on you. It still
Mhm.
doesn't have anything to do with me sharing the information and the reason I left so you can improve. You just chose not to.
Your heart is a little less broken than mine, it sounds. Fair enough. You're not wrong. I just,
I
I'm
agree
past.
with the exit interview. I feel like it's good. And I definitely feel like sometimes, agencies are still not going to self-reflect, and they're just going to be
Right.
like, you know what? They did this to me. Now I'm mad, and let's call the lawyer and let's file a complaint. And so that's going to happen too. But for sure, like if you're a confident, mature person who can take the feedback and go, okay, we just lost a group of people, that reflects on us in some way, right? It could be pay, it could be whatever. So let's look at that and try to improve versus going after people.
That's what I think needs to happen in each company, in any industry. If, this is just personal opinion, but if you have a mass exodus, something happened that enough people were unhappy long enough that they communicated to one another and came to a joint conclusion. That nobody does that in a week. Nobody does that in a month. I've been an employee plenty of times. People are resilient. They'll weather poor treatment for years before they finally come together and go, you know what, screw it, we're out. If you have a mass exodus, something is wrong at your organization. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. You missed something fell through the cracks. It happens. If we ever have a mass exodus, my first step is to look at what did we miss because we missed it. We are accountable. The director, myself, we were unaware of something that was going on, and that's on us. It's not on them, because we should be checking on the BCs regularly so that they feel like they can communicate to us. And if enough of them are communicating about A or B, we need to fix A or B, or we're not serving them. And so you have to have that internal accountability. If you have a mass exodus, it's on you. It's not on them.
I don't even think it has to be a mass exodus though. If you have 2 people leave, that's enough to say, hey, what's going on? How
Yeah,
can we
maybe.
fix this? Maybe a counter offer, or what can we do differently next time? So when we do, because we're always hiring, right? When we do have somebody come in 6 months from now, a year from now, we wouldn't be sitting and doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. It depends. At the lower numbers, it depends, because we'll have a BC that sometimes will leave just simply because like they want a little bit more support than the independent contractor gets. Like, okay, we can do a little bit about that, but we can't do a whole lot because of, the employment parameters separating contractors and employees.
But
So
the
like
question is
sometimes,
asked, right? Like, I mean, that if it's really just, hey, I really am looking at doing something different. And we
yeah.
wish them well.
And that's the thing. You can't make everybody happy, right? You
Right.
can't. Somebody's going to like leave because, things like that, right? You can't make everybody happy. But if you start to have groupings leaving altogether, you messed up somewhere. And you have to be able to take that, or you're not going to get any better. You're going to have another one, right? Simple example, like we can jump over to the liaison at INABC at the other association, Kelly Hartman, right? She is currently absorbing the Tangram behavior consultant team for the second time in, I think, 6 years, 5 or 6 years, something like that. Don't quote me, but somewhere in that time frame, 2 teams of Tangram's behavior consultants have left Tangram as a team to go to Insights to work for Kelly Hartman. And the second team is actively in the process of transitioning from Tangram to Insights. Something is going on at Tangram that you are losing teams. I don't know what. I'm not there. I've never worked there. I don't know the executives there. But you're not losing multiple teams in 5, 6 years to anywhere for no reason.
When you say teams, specify what you're talking about.
Like their entire behavior consultant team. Small team.
Everybody.
Yeah, but it's a small team. They only have like 5. So,
That's huge though. That's your whole entire, that's
department.
everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for the second time in, a small amount of years, in my opinion, the entire team has left. And the second team is currently leaving to go over to Insights. And so is Insights at fault for that? No, good for you. You did good recruiting, right? But Tangram, don't know them, don't know their executives. This isn't personal, right? But if you have these kinds of exoduses, you're doing something there. If SBS sees those, we need to fix stuff here, not go after those BCs, because we already failed them. We already did a disservice to the industry, and we need to fix our house before we start walking out into the community and do anything.
Trying to weaponize BEAD's investigation process.
None of that is going to serve anybody any justice. We need to figure out what's
But
happening
if they're,
in-house.
that's why I don't understand if they are all unsubstantiated, or majority of them, I won't say all, I won't throw that blanket statement out there. But if majority of them are unsubstantiated, what are you getting out of it? Why is it worth your time, your effort, your resources?
There's a lot of months in between complaint filing and the closing of it, months. And, we lose BCs in between there out of fear.
But that was the thing though, if the BC can still practice while the investigation is going on, I would see more if the BC would have to put a pause on everything that they're doing until this investigation was closed.
Our industry
But
would,
it's not
would
that
fail.
way, right?
Agreed.
So,
I think it still comes down to seeing the benefit if you're able to just keep a couple clients. Just seeing that financial benefit of, if we continue to make sure BCs are afraid to tell their clients they're leaving, then we keep them. And even if I pay some lawyer fees or whatever to send a letter, I may keep 3 clients, 5 clients, maybe their whole caseload.
Let me riddle this question to the two of you, and it's going to sound super, super arrogant, and I'm sorry, I don't mean for that. But think about the industry at large, not just SPS. Think about the industry at large. Think about a BC leaves company A for company B that is an SPS, and it doesn't have me backing them. Me going, wait a minute, I will pay your legal fees. I will back you to, the end. So they go from company A to another company B, and they don't have somebody like me backing them like this. There's a failure rate. That's where you see Maisha, where BCs are like, I don't know. And then that agency might not know, might not be as experienced or knowledgeable, and hasn't been watching our episodes, hasn't joined our association yet, and they don't know yet. And so they might be scared too. I've known of agencies where the company files the complaints and that agency fires that BC because they don't know. They're scared. They don't want the wrath of, beads or whatever, or the lawyer letters. Those tactics have sometimes worked, and that's why they repeat them. They just don't uniformly work, and they're starting to work less in the industry because of the work we're doing. And if they come to SBS, I mean, you have me to back you. And so,
how many agencies you think take that approach?
the retaliatory?
No, the backing.
Yeah, I think a few. Definitely think there's a few knowledgeable ones. To the extent that I take it, maybe 2 more that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean there aren't others. I just might not be aware, but yeah. And the goal is, to take it from happening less to like not happening at all,
And it's not all agencies that practice this kind of stuff. I mean,
no, but it's some big players, right? We've already talked about them on the show, right? Ferraro did it. We've talked about Embracing Abilities. We've talked about OPG, Bridges of Indiana. They all do it. Meaningful Day Service does it. BDSI, the list goes on, right? And there's more. I just don't want to call everybody out if I don't have a document to back all of it. And so, because I think that's prudent, right? If I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to back it with a document or something, right?
Right.
And some agencies try some other stuff, like I'm going to show you because we talked about it, right? Insights, Kelly Hartman is currently absorbing Tangram's other team, right? So keep that in mind. I don't know how that deal came about. Don't know, but they're currently absorbing another team from Tangram for the second time in 5-6 years, right? And so last year, my good buddy Kelly hit me up. And Maisha, I'm going to share my screen. Are you okay? We do that every time. About to go. All right, I'm going forward. All right, we're going. So last
I
year,
had a question.
too late. We're moving on. So talking about, Insights absorbing Tangram's team a second time, which I don't fault Insights for doing that. Good for you. You're able to absorb an entire team. That's a hell of a windfall. Maybe you made them great offers, whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying Tangram needs to internalize whatever you're doing to lose 2 teams in that many years. You're doing something wrong. But all the same, Kelly Hartman texted me last year. I got to move this so I can scroll. So she texted me last year, hey, Joaquin, it's Kelly Hartman. Do you mind sharing your email address, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. What do you need it for? She doesn't tell me right away, or never end up emailing, right? I mean, I guess if you don't want to give me your email address, I just thought it would be easier than me texting you. So then she goes on and says, essentially an ethics complaint came through Indiana ABC, right? The other association that we left and created our own, which I personally would rather pick up the phone or write somebody an email to talk through. Doesn't really matter because you're not a member of Indiana ABC that I can see. That's correct, folks. I'm not, and I wasn't, and I clarified that I wasn't. But I'm trying to be preventative and proactive in protecting any behavioral consultant's reputation amongst each other as colleagues and in the field in general. I don't know why that's Kelly Hartman's job, but we go on. Seems you guys are reaching out to behavioral consultants from other companies to recruit them. It's just rubbing people the wrong way, right? So next screenshot. It's just rubbing people the wrong way. Those of you at home, if I read too fast, just pause your screen to read them. It's just rubbing people the wrong way. I personally think it's also questionable, but not against any rules. I just wanted to let you know it's out there. It's really not my business what you do. I was trying to be a good steward. Here's where it gets fun. It's uninvited solicitation. Uninvited solicitation is that verbiage that we just read in Indiana Administrative Code 460, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go on, to clarify, right? Correct. I and SBS are not members of INABC, but you're always welcome to pick up the phone if you want to ever speak to me. I had to ask for your number and was texting out of courtesy to send details in case you wanted them in writing. The solicitation, right? Again, why are we using this verbiage? It's not from you, but one of your employees. I don't have any employees. No big deal. I was trying to be nice. And I said, according to our company attorneys, the recruitment of top talent is perfectly legal. And as you said, not against any rules nor your business. If you are saying that someone in my agency is engaging in uninvited solicitation of consumers, which is the code, that's a complaint for BQIS to handle, not the former owner of a competing agency. She said, I got the whole thing from the association. It was simply an FYI. Sorry I bothered you. I'm not acting on behalf of a competitor, right? Maisha, you catch all that? Can I leave this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so stand by. One more thing before I get your opinions. So she's right, and I clarified in that text thread, I am not a member of Indiana Association of Behavior Consultants. I used to be, but I wasn't when this occurred and long before that. This is INABC's Code of Ethics flowchart, right? Ethical concern arises. The reporter determines if the allegation involves an INABC member and is a direct violation of the code. No, because we weren't members, correct? If the allegation does not involve an INABC member or the INABC Code of Ethics is not breached, no action will be taken and the matter will not be investigated. So riddle me why Kelly Hartman was in violation of their own Code of Ethics. Why was she investigating and taking matters into her own hands when a non-member of their association was recruiting top talent to work at their company, which is perfectly legal? And it is no way, shape, or form a violation of Indiana Administrative Code.
Because she was being nice.
To whom?
Those were her words. Ask her. I don't know.
Oh,
I kind of have issue with the uninvited solicitation and trying to, it seems a little twisted verbiage to pull that from the code.
that was no
regarding-
accident. Kelly Hartman is a
No,
brilliant
she was
person.
very intentional about that. She
Yeah.
was very intentional about that.
Thank
Or
you,
she wouldn't
Maisha.
have put it there. But
Thank
that
you.
is the verbiage that is in the wording from Bede. So that's what she used in order to justify what she was doing. But again, she said she was doing it as a courtesy. She was trying to be nice to you.
Because I needed that. I think you hit it perfectly on the head, Maisha. That verbiage is so historically used as a stick, as a weapon in our industry, that she sent me those messages, in my opinion, intending on policing me and bullying me, and use that verbiage to scare me, not knowing that I have this and have read it multiple times and am well versed in this industry. And I think that was the mistake that she made, because we can recruit all day long. I recruit every day. I recruit in the magazine. I recruit on Indeed. I make phone calls. Hey, man, I got a job offer. Maisha, we're all grown adults, right? If you don't want to go work somewhere, what do?
We don't know.
You don't go. That's why we can recruit all day long. And she was contacting me because we upset another competitor that we were recruiting. What?
But we're not members of INABC.
So she violated their own ethics by engaging in this. And to me, it was inappropriate, because you're not policing me. That's like me calling another agency owner, which I've never done, for the record. you know, when people watch these episodes, all of the stuff that has happened has been sent to us. Like Tracy Gibson called me, Doug Duggar called me, OPG and all the other agencies in Ferraro filed those complaints on us. I've never called a single one of them. I don't have their phone numbers. Kelly Hartman got my number and texted me. We have been reactive. Now we're starting to get proactive, right? We've got some measures going into place, but up until like just recently, we're just completely responding and reacting. But yes,
So the
we
common
recruit.
denominator is you.
Well, we're talking about stuff happening to us. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
if you put it like that.
So explain to me why.
Why what?
Why
you were
are
gonna
they
say
coming
more.
to you with this information?
I think because they are used to affecting that bullying on others, and at times it's worked, and they thought that they could do it to me, and now they have found out that they cannot. So
That was
much
not the
so,
answer I was looking for.
so much so that I'm trying to teach and protect and bring up the rest of the industry to say, hey, stop letting people do this to you. Push back. If you need help, we have a legal aid fund. We'll help finance it. You know, what was the answer you were looking for?
I was looking for. I was looking for what you were doing right that would cause so many people to question or to give you unsolicited
messages.
information.
In my opinion, we're
It's
outperforming.
just recruitment, right? I mean, talking.
But how is our recruitment successful? I think is where Maisha's headed. And if we're asking me, I think we're outperforming. I think we're out innovating. I think we're out recruiting because we're out paying. Because, you know, I don't need the profit margin that they want. You know, I think we're doing all of those things, you know, and so the BCs want to work here. And so if they're qualified and we want them to work here, we come to a deal, right? A transaction. And so
You can go on Indeed and see what some agencies are paying people.
Lever, though, you should list your numbers. Like if you put up a job listing and you don't list your numbers, that to me is like shady.
Margins. I think that was important.
What did she just say?
I'm writing down profit margins. I think that was important.
Oh,
Okay.
sure. I mean, I've been outspoken about that. You know, we don't have a huge profit margin, but like I don't need one. I don't care, and I think that makes me dangerous to the competition because they're used to certain things. You know,
It's
but
kind of a game changer, isn't it?
Competition. I'm sorry, Jennifer, can you repeat that?
I was gonna say the method of paying BCs well, because you don't have this huge concern on the profit margin. You know, a company run by BCs for BCs, a little bit of a game changer. Not saying that there aren't other agencies out there that pay well and treat their BCs well. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that, you know, I started out at a pretty low rate when I came into behavior consulting. And so where I'm at now in comparison to where I was when I started, that's a big jump.
Yep. You know, and jumping back to the whole, you know, messages from Kelly Hartman and the ethics thing. One note I wanted to make is I think you're completely right about how her words were intentional, right? She specifically said that's uninvited solicitation. It is my belief that Kelly Hartman is a brilliant person. I used to look up to her at INABC in the old years. I would walk in there and see her and some others, and I'd be like, yeah, that's who I want to be, until I learned who they really were, and I don't want to be them anymore. But that doesn't change that she's brilliant. You know, she has turned, you know, nothing into something huge. Insights is a big organization, just sold it to ViaQuest. I'm sure that was worth a pretty penny. You know, Kelly has multiple real estate holding companies, so she's, you know, in the real estate game. Like, she knew what she was saying. She knows what she was doing, and there's no excuses, right? Just like I don't make excuses for, you know, the words that I choose when I choose them. So yeah, I just wanted to get back on that soapbox real quick. But why'd you write down profit margins, Maisha? Is there something you want to expand on that one?
It just makes sense. Again, when we go back to talking about commodities, when we go back to talking about what's going right at SBS, when we go back to talking about why it's important that companies put these letters out or open up these investigations, it all boils down to the mighty dollar, which I don't even want to say that out loud and be okay when we're talking about people.
Right.
It hurts
It does.
because I treat my clients like my own, right? And so if you are speaking about my son or daughter as a dollar amount, it degrades them. It shows me that they aren't important to you, just what they can bring in is. It hurts as an individual who is in this industry.
You know, and I agree. That's one of the things that I've always kind of preached about is like, these are our friends and families in our communities, and this is how we're treating them. Like, and you line up 20 people, they'll yell at me about, you have to make money. I fully understand. We have to make enough money to pay everybody in the bills and a little bit of profit, right? Because
I
whatever, right?
understand that.
But the margins, because again, I'm coming from now, in our 4th year of being on the other side of it, you can pay a lot more. You can have a lot less of unnecessary junk, and like you can. It's just they don't. I want to stop fluffing it. Like they don't. They could do a lot more, pay a lot more. They just don't. They'll come up with all the excuses, but like I am on this side of it. I know exactly how much is coming in and how much is going out. And we looked at like in episode 2, we looked at like how they're reporting they're spending it. And I think some of those numbers are skewed. I think they're overspending on a bunch of unnecessary stuff. And then at the same time, I think some of that's skewed. I think they're spending more on that unnecessary stuff that they reported. I don't have proof per se, but I am on this side of it. And I can surely tell you all that, heck, we'd have even more money if we didn't have to waste all the thousands that we have to waste in the hours that we have to spend dealing with the complaints and the cease and desist and then the
Fighting
lawyer
silly things.
fees. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's not petty cash. We're talking 20, 30, 40, 50, $60,000 a year, a person's salary in just hours attributed, because our time has a dollar value per hour, plus the $300 an hour lawyer. And then we have the other $400 an hour lawyer. That's the heavier hitter. And so you tie all of that together, it's not petty change. And that's just us. We're one of 400 and some odd B-man providers. That's just us. So how much money, I think I talked about it in the last one or the one before. I think this was like episode 2. I think there's $1 million of wasted waiver money every year on this kind of stuff. Between all the agencies, I think there is.
Well, and just kind of going back to Maisha's point too, about how this is harmful to our clients and harmful to families. The waiver is about choice. And so, even if we're changing from one agency to the next, are we not a choice? We're a choice for the client, for the family, for the guardian, whomever. So if you're saying I can't tell them that I'm leaving, that's taking away a choice. That is, to me, that is anti-waiver.
And I'll argue all day. You can tell them. I look at all of us as equals, right? Regardless of any parameter, right? Diagnosis and disability included. And so if I have an adult client who's 25 years old and I'm changing from company A to B, he's my equal. I can tell him, hey, bud, I'm leaving Walmart. I'm going to go work at Target in a couple of weeks. Well, hey, can I go with you? Yes, you can. If you want to make that choice, you are welcome to make that choice. You're going to have to talk to your case manager. You're going to have to call up, Jane Smith, CM, and, affect that decision with them. But all I'm telling you is factual truths. This is where I'm going. Yes, you can, if you so choose to work with me, can, because I'm treating that adult like an equal, right? And the code ethics, right? What was it? 15? No, sorry. 13. I can inform the public and colleagues of services by use of factual information. I can inform that individual of factual information. And so that's my stance on that. You guys want to dive into an example of what I believe is uninvited solicitation?
Yes.
Tangible example. All right, let's have some fun again.
Right.
Want to share my screen, Maisha?
Nice.
Okay.
I'm waiting.
All right. I'm going. All right. This is one of only 2 BQIS complaints I've ever filed because I don't weaponize them. They are not a stick. They're a prudent, necessary, piece of helping our people stay safe. But I don't file these for fun. These are not fun. These need to be with evidence and heavy, whatever. So I filed this back August of last year. Me, the filer, I take accountability, right? I filed it, company address. I redacted the protected health information because a specific individual, it's not necessary. And the reason why I filed this is right here, right? Facts and statements of allegations, right? So the mother and guardian of the individual redacted called supportive behavior services today on 8/25 to report that she received a call from Nikki, the compliance officer at Embracing Abilities. Nikki told the guardian that Embracing Abilities does not like supportive behavior services. Therefore, they were unwilling to provide PAC and any other services to individual. She then solicited them by telling her to discontinue services with supportive behavior services and that the only way Embracing Abilities would be willing to service her son is if she did so. She further encouraged her to terminate services by expressing that Embracing Abilities could provide behavior management instead of SBS and other services as an incentive. Blank called SBS and reported being upset about this uninvited solicitation. So for those at home, you can pause your screen if you want to read the whole thing. We asked for it to be investigated. You guys good if I stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
I didn't wait for you to answer, Maisha, sorry. So a mother called SBS and said, hey, I just got this phone call from Nikki Bartok, which is the compliance officer at Embracing Abilities. This is the conversation I just had. So I went ahead and filed that because she called me, told me this on the, told us this, and then filed it. That's it, right? I didn't have that experience, but a family came and reported this situation happened. So we reported it. And what's weird about this one in particular is, of course, everybody now knows, if they didn't already, the fun history we've had with, the sabotage from Tracy Gibson and Nikki over there at Embracing Abilities, right? You guys all, whoever watched episode 3, there's more, right? We didn't share everything in episode 3. There's more, and there's still more. We're not going to share it all today. And so I started to talk about this event happening to case managers and to families and said, hey, this mother, we received a call from a mother about this. Have you heard about this? You know how many case managers came back to me and told me, yeah, they're known for doing that. They're known for leveraging their other services. Hey, you want music therapy? You want rec therapy from our company because we predominantly provide that. You also have to pick up the behavior management from our company. Oh, well, I get it over here from Bridges or SBS or from Ferrara. Well, you're going to have to change over if you want PAC or respite or music. Who wants to go first? Initial reaction.
I have no words.
Yeah, I think I'm a little stunned as well.
So what you're saying is you cannot have other services with us if you don't choose those other services with us.
That to me is uninvited solicitation. That is.
So I need it all. Give it all to me or none at all.
That is to me undue influence, manipulation, or coercion, in my opinion.
For sure.
So no longer family voice and choice.
Well, technically, somebody could argue, well, we gave them that circumstance. The family made the choice of what to do or not to do. How many families do you think?
No. You told me specifically if I did not, I could not receive this service. And we know that PAC providers are hard to come by. You're telling me I cannot have PAC services, which you were willing to provide until or unless you choose a behavior, a B-man.
From their company, yep.
From my company, from where you're gonna get the PAC services from. Specifically, this is what was said?
I did not have that phone conversation with Nikki Bartok. So I'll be completely honest. The mother called supportive behavior services to report that she had that conversation with Nikki. So that's the only information we had. We had a mother calling in to complain because she had a BC with SBS and didn't want to lose him. She's like, what do? I want my son to have PAC services, but he's been working with this BC for a year or two, and I don't want to lose, like, we have a good rapport, good relationship with this behavior consultant. We don't want to lose that. I need help. And so I said, I can file a complaint with BQIS. And so I did that evening. But I did
What
not have that
happened to that?
conversation. What happened to it?
Yeah.
I have no knowledge.
So you don't know if it was closed or substantiated, or you don't get to know.
I will show you what I know. This is all I know. This was January 17th. So I filed this on August 25th. This was January 17th. So what is that? 4 or 5 months later? And I don't know. It just says no further investigation needed. I have no idea what came of it. The mother does, right? Because like the individuals, you know,
They find out.
Yes,
Okay.
they do find out. And I don't particularly have an issue with not finding out. I'm not an individual who needs closure. Can I close this, Maisha? You good?
Well, I guess, I mean, you know, if it's just closed and everything's fine, they continue doing those kinds of things to clients and their families, and that's just so wrong.
Well, it's closed. I don't know if it was closed unfounded, if it was closed founded, like the mother would know, but I'm not going to call her to ask.
Sure.
Like that's, to me, it's an overstepping.
Right.
If I were to like, hey, so what happened? I'm not going to do that. And I don't know that I need them to tell me what happened. If it took 4 or 5 months, my guess is something came of it, because if they close, they normally close faster, 2 or 3 months.
That's true.
This is just perception. It's not factually based. I don't have any real rubric. I just, in my experience, if they close, they usually close in like 2 to 3 months. If they stay open, they're like 5 or 6 months. And that one looked like a 5 or 6 month or so. Maybe something came of it. I don't know. And again, I didn't have that conversation with Nikki, because if I did, it would have gone differently, right? So like, no, I didn't have that conversation. Just the mother called us to say, hey, I just got this phone call. What do I do? You know, panicking because she didn't want to lose her behavior consultant. She
If I
didn't.
were a case manager on that case, I would flip. Just flip.
As a compliance officer, how are you justified in saying that?
You're not. You're not. She's not. They're not. And to further, like I said, you know, because I'm loud, right? So afterwards, you know, in the weeks to come, I talk to my case management friends. I have a ton of them in all over the state, you know, and I was like, hey, do you know anything about this? You know, and several of them were like, yeah, they're known for doing that. They're known for leveraging their other services to families. And I was just like, well, I only have one complaint, right? That's all I filed, because we don't use them as a weapon. It's not retaliatory. It's not because you've upset me. Because in all the times that they've upset me, I've filed 0 complaints. That is the only complaint I've ever filed against Embracing Abilities, and it was because the mother called supportive behavior services. Otherwise, I would have never filed it. If I heard that secondhand from a case manager, it's not mine to file, because it's not a weaponized system. It's not supposed to be.
Okay, I had a friend, a neighbor, who wanted services, so I helped her get services. And she said, can you service my sons? And I said, no, because I feel like that's a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Your neighbor's been your neighbor for years. I talk to your kiddos, but not on that level. I talk to them on this level. So I would prefer you choose someone else, right?
Yeah.
And so she was completely overwhelmed when her case manager sent her the pick list.
Sure.
And so I said, well, what about this company? Because they're close. I live in Avon. That company was in Brownsburg.
I know where this is
And
going.
I said, what about them? So she chose them for behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also had rec, maybe.
Sure.
And they were like, oh, we also offer music and we have these other services. Well, behavior didn't work out right. So she went with another company, the company I was with, just a different provider, for behavior services. I said, hey, you know, there's this guy who I think would be a good fit. Try them. And so she tried this guy, specifically requested this person. And because she moved behavior services to a different company, they dropped her kiddos for music or for rec. It was rec. They dropped her kiddos for rec and would not service them. I didn't think other people were doing that. I just thought it was this one company in Brownsburg. So what you're telling me, or what you just showed me, was that other companies are practicing this way. And
Unfortunately,
that's okay because
it's not okay. That's
you're supposed to
coercion.
say profit margins.
You know, and there's so many aspects to it, in my opinion. It's just like, at what point do you find yourself picking up the phone or in person or an email and just saying to the parent of a disabled child, if you don't buy this from us as well, I'm not going to give you this? Like, I couldn't utter that. I couldn't. We don't offer another service, right? Just B-Man level 1 and 2. But if we did, and the family was like, I only want that, and I only want 2 hours of that. Okay. Thanks for shopping here. You know, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what came of it, if anything did or didn't. I'm not privy to that. And I'm fine with that. Like I said, I don't need
That's
closure.
ugly practice. That for sure should get the attention of beads. Yeah.
I don't know. We get their
So then
attention
what do
too.
they
So I
do
don't know.
about it?
I don't know.
Because that's proof, right? That was proof.
I mean,
If
the
they were to
parents'
contact that-
testimony.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do they do about it then? I know you're saying it doesn't matter, you don't need to know. But if we're going to change, if we are going to enhance, if we are going to get on board across the board, what's going to make people not do some of the things that they're doing? What's going to change our industry for the better so we can better service the clients that we are fortunate enough to serve? It's a choice.
I wish I
Feel
had
like
an
that's a
answer.
whole nother series of podcasts, right? Like
Potentially. I mean, and I'll be candid, I don't have an answer. Like in
Yeah.
that specific situation, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what kind of
But
consequence can happen, or if any
if
does, or, I don't know what it looks like.
if we are providing a service, regardless of whatever service that is, B-Man or PAC or respite or music or rec, whatever that service is, and we're getting these, dollars, how can we improve so this is not the norm, that you are not allowed to do these unethical practices and be justified, or you justifying what you're doing and getting away with it?
I wish I knew. Um, the state has different capabilities than we do, of course. So like for me, like with a lot of what's been going on is we're going to start telling the truth. We're going to tell the truth to everybody, right? We're putting it out there everywhere. No more lurking in the shadows, doing these nefarious things in the shadows. And so that's how I'm combating it. I'm combating it with a legal aid fund. I'm combating it with information and telling the truth and information sharing. I'm combating it by offering people to come on here and, discuss the different things that are going on with us and maybe their perspectives. Maybe there's something that I'm not seeing from that side of it. Come on here and let's talk about it. Teach me something.
Have you ever have anybody ever accepted that offer?
To date, no, not to date. Most people don't actually respond to my email when I invite them. So they're not actually declining it. They just ignore it. So I can only, do so much. But no, nobody's taking me up on that. I think because it'll be recorded and it'll be uploaded. Like, I don't care what the results are. Make me look stupid. I'll record it and upload it. I don't care. I think that's the component, if you've got things to hide, you don't want them to be, made public, where we don't have anything to hide. So I'll make everything public,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I really need, what I want, what I think our industry needs is definitions and examples, genuine definitions, not, 40 seconds of a webinar that says, if you list for DSPs, it's not solicitation. We need clear cut definitions and then a bunch of examples so that it's not left to everybody's interpretation of it. Because like Jennifer has said, if they're closing out cases or if they're finding that you did do this, then you have some semblance of a definition. And one of my problems is in a conversation that I had with Robin Carruthers, she's one of the BEADS BQIS investigators, who's had some of the cases that, the retaliatory complaints against SBS is, and then she's had some of those cases. So we've had a lot of conversations. And in one of those conversations, I was arguing about this whole thing. And she said, one of the difficulties is the fact that the state does not have a definition. And so that leaves it up to each investigator effectively to have their own definitions.
That's
And
scary.
that's terrifying
That's
because
scary. Oh my God.
that's terrifying because depending on the day that they're having, depending on if they like me or not, how this is
Right.
going to
Yeah.
go.
Do I like you? Do I not like you? Like, yeah.
Do I like who complained against you more? Like what we're experiencing with OPG, they like OPG and Kelly Hartman more. And so we're experiencing the brunt of that. That's a whole nother thing.
Mm.
But yeah, she explained to me that like they don't have a blanket definition. So it's up to them to have their own. She explained to me her definition, and her definition is the namesake of this show, Disney World. She said, if you approach an individual and say, hey, I'll take you to Disney World, I'll take you out to lunch every day. If you come work with me, that is uninvited solicitation. But a client merely following their BC to another agency because they want to work with them is in no way, shape, or form solicitation, uninvited, anything negative. And I agree with that. We are in agreement with that, but that's one of however many BQIS BEADS investigators. And so that to me is inherently problematic that we could potentially have many versions.
I don't see that. I don't even see how that's possible. You're asking me to do a job and investigate something, but I don't have a definition to investigate it.
I mean,
Or
the
you're giving me a
policy,
job to do, but you're not giving me a job description.
depending on the day, it's this, depending on this day, it's that. Yeah. I mean, I look through and read these policies. I highlight them. My favorite thing to do is put my post-it notes, right? And the important stuff are important to us.
Well, and going back to the clip you shared in the beginning where they kind of just glossed over what is uninvited solicitation. And if you want more info, give us a call. I mean,
just disseminate it. Just tell us the info, put it up, and let all of us have it at the same time. Like, why do I have to call to get one definition and then Maisha calls gets a different definition? Jennifer
right.
calls. Put it up. Do a whole
That was
webinar.
the purpose, right? The purpose was to give you that definition.
I guess.
But that's what leads to your own interpretation.
Which would be fine if I wasn't subject to other people's interpretations, right? Because when the state comes in and they say, hey, we got a complaint on you because a BC left another company, this is my interpretation today. And this is my interpretation next week. This is this BQIS investigator's interpretation. This is this one's. It's problematic. And that problematicness is why companies still engage in this, Maisha, because they can get away with it. Because there's a lot of ambiguity, and then the state won't come out here and clarify for us genuinely, just roundabout. So it's up to us. It's up to us to affect change in our industry, because I got tired of asking other people to do it for us. So I started doing it myself. I started recruiting like-minded individuals like you all, highly intelligent and skilled clinicians, to come together and to just say, you know what, enough is enough. We have to do things differently. We have to do them better. And so, here we are. Maisha, why do you look so upset?
It's puzzling.
Yeah.
It's also part of the reason I wanted to be a part of IBA, but it's troubling. It's thought-provoking information that points in a direction of, for lack of a better word, I don't even have a word. It's troubling. I feel like we already get a bad rap depending on the situation, especially if you change companies. I feel like you're almost damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And because I'm trying to provide good services to good families, I'm going to be punished if I go from one company to another. It's not right.
Mhm.
And as an industry, with someone who needs to have a master's degree, and I mean, you're requiring a lot from me as a clinician, right? I should be protected and safe from persecution if
Persecution
I
over profit
decide to
margins.
go somewhere else. My profit margin shouldn't matter, or the profit margin of my individuals shouldn't matter to a company more than the individual themselves.
And they'll say they do with their words, but they won't show us with their actions. You don't care about children and adults with disabilities if you have the audacity to leverage services over them to gain other services or to harm another provider. You don't care. I don't care what you say. You don't care. You don't truly deep down care if you are spending $300-400 an hour on an attorney to bully other companies when somebody leaves you, but not when they arrive to you. You don't truly deep down care. Maybe you did when you opened. Maybe you did then. Maybe that version of you did, but the version of you now doesn't. And somewhere in between the day you opened and where you are now, you have lost that. And you need to find it or stop or whatever. But like, we are here to stay and we are here to fight. I can't wait till we get to the day where we don't have to fight anymore, because I got so many great things that are happening in this industry that I want to focus on. Playgrounds to build and all sorts of other projects that are on my desk. And that's what I want to highlight more than this stuff. But like, this is costing thousands upon thousands of dollars, people's careers, families are hurt every day by it. It needs to stop. Jennifer, you got any closing, rounding out thoughts as we're headed out the door for this one?
No, the end of our conversation kind of stunned me. So now I'm also like kind of speechless. But yeah, I mean, I need to get back to like making sure that we're offering people choice and that we care about how the family feels and the client feels. And you know, not fighting each other, you know, behavior consultant agencies constantly going after each other with lawyer letters and weaponizing beads and it's such a waste. It's such a waste. And then in the end, like, the family is still going to choose who they're going to choose. So yeah.
So how do we do that?
We start setting the standard and we fight back against those who are not meeting it.
I think this
Yeah.
podcast is part of that, right? Just to kind of put these conversations out there.
I think it's
Let
one of
them
the
out.
measures, having the difficult conversation, speaking the truth. I think that is one way. I think IBA is another big way, because we're going to be setting ethical standards that are significantly higher through IBA, and hopefully many will continue to join and be willing to live up to those high standards. Communication, telling the truth, disseminating this information that is occurring, because it is factually provably, and we'll keep talking about it until it stops happening, and then we'll talk about other stuff, but it just is happening. It's undeniable and it's expensive. Yeah. Everybody's gonna have a long day now. Maisha, you got any final thought as we round out for today?
Those were my final thoughts.
Good
I
final
was
thoughts.
just Baffled.
Yeah.
I've got a couple. One is one of my favorite quotes from NCIS, which is one of my favorite shows. The original, not any of the spinoffs, the original NCIS, right? It's from Agent Gibbs's father. It is, this world is bad enough as it is, and you've got no goddamn right to make it any worse. And that is a quote that I've, held on to ever since I first heard it from that show. And I've watched all 21 seasons, like twice. So that quote. And I want to go ahead and give my disclaimer. It's been 3 more episodes. I want to give my disclaimer again that I am not struggling with any forms of addiction or substance abuse except caffeine. I do not have any struggles with any mental health. And I take care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually quite well. So if anything happens to me, I go missing. I don't go hiking alone or whatever.
You don't get in strangers' vehicles.
No, I don't drive at night for fun. So if anything happens to me, somebody did it to me. I did not do it. And lastly, I'll address that I wore my favorite shirt again. I haven't worn it in a couple episodes, and I have not laundered it since. We're going to see how long we can go without laundering it, so we can do stinky shirt podcasts. Those are my final thoughts. I'll thank everybody who has been coming back each week to listen to us talk about what's going on in the Indiana Medicaid waiver industry. We've got some more fun episodes coming. We're going to be doing a panel with music therapy and residential, and we're hitting a lot of different avenues. And then I do have an interview coming up with the publisher of the Special Needs Living magazine. That's going to be an exciting one. So we're going to be talking about all things waiver, not just the bad, but the bad is important because we need to fix it. And we'll be highlighting the good as well. If anybody out there who watches wants to come on here and argue with me, tell me I'm wrong, you are more than welcome. It is joaquinorosco.behavior@gmail.com. Hit me up, let me know, and you can come on here and give it to me. Maisha, Jennifer, thank you as always for being a part of this, and Maisha for being the president of the new association. Great work being done there. BCs, join IBA if you'd like. It's a good thing. And we will catch you guys next time.